Honorable Minister, we also have here with us very important persons in the names of local governments, and these come from several districts: Mubende, Nebi, Lira, Amur, Tororo, Katakwi, Kumi, Palisa, Kwen, Amudat, Tororo, Moroto, Kamuli, Namutumba, Jinja, Masaka, and Mbarara. So we have chief administrative officers and district community development officers from these entities. Honorable Minister, I would like to say that this particular meeting, symposium, national symposium on the impact and sustainability of gender-based violence shelters in Uganda, which is being held today, has been organized by your very own ministry, UN Women, Action Aid, and it has been supported by the Embassy of Sweden and Norway. Since we started the program this morning, we have covered a lot of ground, and we have achieved a lot in form of pledges for continued support, and we are confident that the recommendations of this symposium will go a long way in ensuring that we have more impact and sustainability of gender-based violence shelters in Uganda. Having noted this, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite the Commissioner, Dr. Angela Nakafero, to give you a synopsis of what transpired this morning so that you'll be able to appreciate what we have achieved so far, and to be able to take it forward in your capacity as the Minister of Gender, Labor, and Social Development. So we want to thank you for coming, and we look forward to your remarks. Honorable Commissioner, Dr. Nakafero, come. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, Honorable Peace Regis Mutuzo, we are happy to see you. Thank you for creating time to join us. This morning, Honorable Minister, we had an opening session. As part of the remarks, we were challenged to look at the GBV shelters, not as infrastructure, but looking at the GBV shelters from the perspective of the survivors that need a lot of support. We had remarks from the country representative of UN Women, and UN Women committed support in this area. We also had remarks from the Ambassador, Her Excellency Maria Hanksson from the Embassy of Sweden. She really challenged us to take action. In her words, she said that only actions count. So we need, in our respective capacities, to take actions in terms of prevention of GBV, but also response and actions in terms of ensuring that our GBV survivors are able to access the services that are required. We had a documentary which profiled where we are coming from and what's happening from the different GBV shelters that we have. We had a presentation, Honorable Minister, on the status and prospects of gender-based violence shelters in Uganda. We noted that these shelters started in 2017, not 2017, by the support of the Irish Aid and working closely with civil society organization. To date, we've been able to have more development partners, start shelters in other districts, and mobilize more partners in terms of delivering the services for the survivors. To date, we have over 20 GBV shelters in different parts of the country. However, most of the funding to these shelters is ending by 2024. Some of them we have funding up to end of next year. And of course, that doesn't sound very well for us, because we need to really increase our efforts in mobilizing resources externally, internally, and also engaging our district local governments to think about contributing to the running of the GBV shelters. Honorable Minister, on an encouraging note, some of our district local governments are contributing to the running of the GBV shelters wherever they are, and we celebrate that. We also have local governments that have really played a critical role in the establishment of the shelters. Queen is one of the cases that we celebrate, and we are challenging the rest of the districts to do the same. Honorable Minister, the issue of sustainability is at the heart of this discussion. We had a presentation on resourcing for GBV shelters, and we had the presentation was made by Madam Jean Kemtali from Urgent Action Fund. She really opened and discussed quite a number of options. The first one was the fact that we need to diversify the funding streams to the GBV shelters, and all of us seem to agree on this, because we can no longer rely on our development partners. Government of Uganda, we have to start investing into the shelters, local government, civil society, private sector, and all of us. From this meeting, we've built consensus that we need to take advantage of the existing funding streams. One of them was trying philanthropies, where individuals can also contribute. We need to invest into advocacy, serious advocacy, where we should engage Parliament of Uganda, as well as Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, to improve the resource allocated to GBV prevention and response, and in particularly to the management of the GBV shelters. We encourage that, in spite of the fact that funding is limited, funding is available. So it's against us to take efforts in tapping into the available resources. So in terms of some of the actions, Honorable Ministers, coming out of our discussion is for the Ministry of Gender, Labour, Social Development to take leadership in mobilizing partners, mobilizing resources, and from here we'll be working on our project proposal that will be marketing through Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development to our development partners, but also ensuring that we pick the input of the civil society organization and local governments that are supporting the GBV shelters. We also noted that it's quite important that we integrate gender-based violence prevention and response in other ongoing programs, Parish Development Model, Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, the GROW project that we are soon embarking on, the Youth Livelihood Program, and others. And of course, Ministry of Gender, Labour, Social Development, we need to play our role. The bottom line, Honorable Minister, was the sustainability of the GBV shelters, but also bringing on board effective male participation. So far, Honorable Minister, that is what we've discussed. And thank you very much for joining us. We are looking forward to your remarks. Thank you. I would also like to take this opportunity to invite you, Honorable Minister, to address us. Thank you very much. Where is our sanitizer? Okay.
Thank you so much. My apologies to begin with, that I should have been here at the beginning of the program, but my minister who was supposed to be here also was caught up with another engagement, and by the time I knew, I was also in another engagement, and since I had to respect it, so I ensured that we run it quickly up to the end, but I'm nevertheless here before this program is concluded. So my sincere apologies. I am also informed that some of the dignitaries that should have been here in the morning actually were here due to other engagements, had also had to leave. Nevertheless, to be on record, I would acknowledge them as though they were here to be on the Hansard. So, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors, Maria Hackson, the Embassy of Sweden, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Royal Norwegian Embassy, Their Excellencies in absentia, Australia, Ireland, honorable members of Parliament, the technical heads of corporations from embassies and high commissions, the country representatives of UN Women, UNDP, UNICEF, UNHR, UNHCR, UNICEF, the country director, Action Aid International, Uganda, Mark Xavier Joyi, the chief administrative officers from different districts like Mubende, Nebirera, Amur, Tororo, Kamuri, Namutumba, Mbarara, and others, the districts, community development officers, officials from the MDS departments and ministries, and agencies, KCCA, local governments, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank UN Women and the Sweden, Norwegian ambassadors and their countries, respective countries, for organizing this very, very important symposium and to address a specific challenge which is really so biting. First of all, we had COVID at our fingertips, which appeared to affect everybody, but to affect women in a very, very devastating way. We took 2 years in that lockdown. Women were being subjugated double the time of their counterparts, especially the little girls, where over 3 million little girls were forced into early pregnancies, and some of them in marriage. We thought once COVID was gone, we would go back to the wheel and start afresh and try to recover. Try also to support the ones who were gotten pregnant, because at the time we're looking at them going back to school. The economy came in, climate change came in, the locusts came in, and all those, at the end of the day, have a bigger impact on women than anyone else. As we talk right now, as poverty strikes more people, as the prices of commodities hike everywhere in the world, the little girls are now looked at art as a commercial product. They are the first ones to be considered to let go in exchange of money, which is also a rare commodity. Within the pastoral communities, people there would rather save trees and not burn charcoal, but they will not save the girl. You must have seen something running on the social media where a girl was being kidnapped, compelled to marry against her will, unfortunately being betrayed by her only aunt who she trusted most than anyone else. I am on my way to look for her. Before this week ends, I should have gotten to this girl. Otherwise, I will not leave that district where she was taken. So I am pleased this morning or this afternoon to welcome you all to this symposium on the commitment towards ending and responding to violence against women and girls. I wish to thank you all for putting off time to attend this important high-level dialogue, and your presence demonstrates the continued commitment towards the end of sexual gender-based violence. In a special way, I want to welcome their excellencies of the different embassies and agencies that have joined hands to organize this symposium jointly with the MDAs and agencies to ensure that we respond and continue to support the women in distress because of gender-based violence. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to bring your attention that prevalence of gender-based violence in Uganda remains unacceptably high despite the government's commitment and efforts towards prevention and responding to sexual gender-based violence. The National Survey on Violence in Uganda, conducted by UBOS 2021, reveals that 56% of women in intimate relationships have experienced violence, whether physical, sexual, or emotional. But I want to highlight the word intimate relationship. Intimate is supposed to mean love. And I don't know how violence comes within love, whether it is an integral part of love. I don't really get it. Whereas the two are joined by love, the biggest time they spend is really on addressing issues of violence. They are angry with each other, they are unhappy, and you wonder why love is expressed within these times, demonstrated in actions of violence. Whereas physical violence against women has reduced from 51 in 2016 to 45 in 2021, sexual violence has instead increased from 22 in 2016 to 36 in 2021. Why sexual violence? What is missing? That people have to find it in a sexual relationship and in a violent way. When there are women over there who are willing to offer themselves either at a cheap cost or at a free will. What is this that leads people to violate other people's rights in a sexual, forceful mechanism? The same survey indicates that 47% of women have faced economic violence, such as being forced to give part of their earnings, refused to access jobs, or denied money for household expenses. Violence against children below 12 years equally remains high in the past 12 months, with physical violence against boys at 68% and girls at 73%. Emotional violence stands at 57% for boys and 61% for girls. Ladies and gentlemen, one cannot proceed in this conversation without acknowledging the havoc and the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, which left many young girls trapped up in sexual violence and increasing the spikes in teenage pregnancies and child marriages. 34% of women aged between 20 to 24 years were married or in a union before age 18, and 7% were married before age 15. Of late, some girls are even married before age 10. I met a girl in Arua 2 days ago, just 2 days ago. She was feeding a baby who was 4 months, and the girl was 10 years. Unfortunately, the spouse who has actually married her off is 72 years. So some people want to bring curses to themselves, because I wouldn't imagine a child of 10 with a 72 years old man, and you call that marriage? It's even worse than just rape. It is slavery, or even worse than that. And the little girl has nowhere to turn. Worse still, this is a grandfather to that some particular girl, blood grandfather. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, behind all these figures and statistics are women and girls' lives which are being shattered on a daily basis. Depending on the form and gravity of violence, these survivors, victims, need a package of support services from government institutions mandated to deliver healthcare access to justice, psychosocial support, temporary shelter accommodation, feeding, and mediation. The 20 shelters in different parts of Uganda have been keen providing a conducive space where government institutions and non-state actors have converged and worked together to provide that much needed support. When I went to police stations, they told me they did not know where to put such a person. She's carrying a baby, you won't take her to sales. No one is going to bring her the food because the family where she derives sustainability is where she was married, but also a relative to a relative who has subjugated her rights. The grandmother could not speak against the husband's decision. And so you look at this, a vicious cycle. So as we talk about poverty, all these have a bearing on poverty and abject poverty. I was interviewing some ladies on what mechanisms, because the research we are talking about now was carried out maybe a year or two ago. We need to update ourselves with research almost every day. But also importantly, design our own mechanisms against which we should solve these problems. I was also viewing some social media program, a video running, which ran viral, where a man reported the son who was battering him. And this man was able to mobilize other able-bodied men, I think 6 of them. They whipped the man to my satisfaction. They whipped this man who was violating the father's rights because he would go home and beat the father up. So these Muslim men converged and beat the man to my real satisfaction. And I wished we could mobilize such a force of men to invade the men who are violating women's rights and handle them thoroughly on the ground. Maybe some fear would come. Maybe some sense of sanity would come. Because we have legislated. The penal code has all the laws. We have put structures. Police is all over. We have leaders. We have where to report to. But somehow, there is always a small excuse that fails people to act when it is a woman reporting. Go and sort your matters home. I mean, I have failed to sort them at home. That's why I'm here. So when you send the distress back to their tormentors. What are you telling their tormentors to do? Do more than what you have already done. No one will touch you. That's what it means. That's the message it sends. So we have to devise local mechanisms where we can legally address these matters. To date, a total of 79,695 survivors in the last 5 years have accessed packages of support services through the gender-based violence shelters. A total of 68,141, which is 61% of the cases, were resolved through mediations. But we also have to go deeper and understand the kinds of mediations we are doing. The matter is of a criminal nature, and people are sitting down to mediate about it. And it is parents who are involved in the mediation. And their kind of mediation is to accept that injustice to continue by giving away this daughter who had gotten pregnant to the oppressor who made her pregnant at age 10. What are you mediating? That the girl should be raped every day from age 10 to the last day she goes to the grave? What are we mediating? That she should be compelled to live in a relationship not of her choice? So all these, we need to put them into perspective and define the kind of mediation and cases that can afford to go for mediation, and those that should not even meet anything to do with mediation. There are some court rulings which I feel we also need to categorically know how many court rulings have. How many cases have moved to conclusions where a ruling is made, others have been referred, and there are those that have received counseling. During the COVID-19 lockdown period, survivors sought for services at various gender-based violence shelters. In addition, the GBV shelters have provided entrepreneurial skills, and individual women have been supported to start livelihood projects for their families, generating a total income of 132,570,000 shillings. We'd like to extend our appreciations to the development partners, in particular UK government, Sweden, Norway, through MPTF, USAID, through Center for Disease Control, European Union, and UN agencies for the financial support that has sustained the operations of these gender-based violence shelters. Ladies and gentlemen, when the GBV shelters were being established, we had anticipated that the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development and the respective district local governments which host these gender-based violence shelters would at one point in time be able to allocate resources towards the delivery of GBV shelters and sustain them. Unfortunately, this has not been the case when the joint program on the gender equality and support to Uganda Responsive and Gender Equality Program, which funded the GBV shelters operation, came to an end in 2015 and 2020, respectively. The sustainability of GBV shelters had been hanging in balance. I'm happy to note that one of the districts, I think Kole, is it Kole? Queen. At least Queen has taken it up and is supporting the sustainability. The government of Uganda remains committed to increasing the physical space for GBV shelters, and these efforts have been demonstrated through the mainstreaming of the GBV shelters into the Ministry's Strategic Plan 2020-2025 and the third National Development Program. National Development Plan. However, I'd like to appeal for support towards the sustainability of these shelters as we engage in dialogue with the Parliament and the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development and the Cabinet to allocate more resources for the sustainability of gender-based violence shelter and prevention responses including the management of GBV shelters. As I conclude, I sincerely thank all the partners that have been part of the GBV shelter journey in Uganda. I particularly wish to applaud UN Women and the Action Aid International Uganda for the support towards the symposium and for the continued collaboration with the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development and GBV prevention stakeholders and response in this country. That's Your Excellencies and distinguished guests. It has been a great honor to host you today at this symposium, and we look forward for stronger ties between our respective countries. We are proud of you for the commitment you have continued to offer and support. And even now, when some of the programs are coming to an end, you have still recommitted yourselves, because the problem is not getting less, it is actually increasing. Please hang in there. Let's move together as a team. It is not only in Uganda, it is all over the world. We have to work together to ensure that we calm it down as we also move towards the grassroots. We have held a number of meetings with the culture institutions, which have at least made commitments and statements against sustainability of gender-based violence under the guise of culture. They have denounced all acts of violence against women and girls under the guise of culture. And this we have to continue moving with them so that their pronouncements are followed by actions, not as ceremonial speeches. We want to see actions on the ground. We look ahead to a future where we shall be free. And I can tell you squarely that no country is free if its women are not free. As we celebrate independence, we should know how many people are independent in that independent country. If women are still subjugated, if they are still treated as subhuman beings, then the country is not independent enough. We look ahead to the future, collaboration in the fight against any form of sexual gender-based violence. I want to thank you for coming and for the attention you have given me. And I still reiterate, I am sorry for making you wait and wait and wait. Nevertheless, count on me. I must have been busy engaged into something very productive. And I have saturated some of the questionnaire somewhere to show that I'm committed towards researching individually. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to do research on our own. Each one should craft a way in which we come to an end of this vice. Because even if we made helicopters, even if we had the best roads and hotels, our daughters would be violated in those hotels. They would be treated as slaves there, on the roads, in those cars, even in the planes. I'm sure you have seen a number of them moving. So we need to protect the ones here and make our country, to begin with, safer for everybody to live in. And compare the others tomorrow, or our neighbors, to make theirs also better, so that whoever goes is also in safe hands. Thank you so much for listening to me, for God and my country. And if you see me leave immediately, don't think she just came to hold the microphone and run as a politician. There's still an equally important engagement that I have to be part of. So you will excuse me. As soon as I finish here, I beg that you allow me to move to another program. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Peace Regis Mutuzo, for those words. And you can see her passion, her commitment beyond call of duty. We thank you and we wish you the very best as you serve. Yeah. I'd like to make a slight change for this afternoon and also to live up to our commitment. The program says that we should retain you for 1 hour. It was supposed to be running, as you can see at the back of your program, from 2 to 3 p.m. And that is exactly 1 hour. I'd like us to change from the panel discussion and to look at how best we can utilize the 30 minutes remaining, because it's almost 30 minutes done. And in line with what we heard from Her Excellency Maria Hackinson of the Embassy of Sweden, who said, walk the talk, only actions count. I'd like to implore us to take off some time to listen to some survivors of GBV. Some survivors of GBV, and I'd like to request Action Aid to quickly help bring up the survivors. I hope we have a counselor and psychosocial help to help us in case of it's needed. And we are going to give each of these, and you'll help me, Angela, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So that you can have a sense of the aspect of impact. Because as you can recall, this morning was committed mostly to sustainability. So when they have finished their 5 minutes each, we shall still have 15 minutes. And in those 15 minutes, we shall see whether we can give 10 minutes to some CAOs and DCDOs who may have burning issues, and then maybe 5 minutes or so for Action Aid to close, and we shall be out of here. So that's how I propose that we handle the afternoon, with your permission. I hope that is all right. I hope that's all right. So can we have Amoding Betty, and she's from Kumi. Amoding Betty, where are you, my sister? We had a microphone. Would you like to give us, shall I give you a chair? I can get you a chair. Are you comfortable? You can stand. Yeah. Can we, where's the spray so that we had a spray around here. Just 5 minutes. You are welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to stand here with you, don't worry.
Good afternoon, my friend. Yes. I'm called Amoding Betty. I come from Ukumi district. I'm one of the survivors. I was given land by my grandmother, the mother of my father. But my uncle, the young brother of my dad, wanted to take it away from me. Okay, when I was a little girl, he used to abuse me that I'm disabled. I'm out of place. I don't belong to their family. I'm not even supposed to be with the people. I'm supposed to be buried alive. So he used to beat me up, to abuse me, deny me food, and even my aunties used to beat me up and deny me food. So now, after my studies, I studied up to a diploma level. I was to complete my degree from Mundeje University, but I only attended for 1 semester, and I lost my sponsor. So I didn't complete that course. But after now that course, I succeeded. I got a job with the ADD, Action on Disability and Development. But still, it was a contract. After that contract, my grandmother decided to give me land, one garden. But after now the town council reached our place, it became plots. But my uncle denied me. He told me I'm not supposed to cultivate on that land. I'm not even supposed to build there. I'm not supposed to sell it. That I'm a stranger. I don't belong to their family. So my grandmother asked him, how comes this girl is a stranger, and yet I'm your mother and I'm the mother of that girl? He said, no, you didn't come with the land from your home. The land is mine. So he was very bitter on my grandmother and even wanted to beat me up. So I wanted to sell off that plot. He denied. I decided to run to Action Aid. When I went to Action Aid, they summoned him. But at first, he refused to go to report. It took him like 3 weeks to report. Then now, on the day he reported there, he told the officials that this girl does not belong to our family. In fact, I want to chase her away. But they insisted on him that how comes she's a stranger? He said, I don't know her. She forged those papers. Then my grandmother said, no, I'm the one who wrote those papers, and I'm the one who gave this granddaughter of mine that land. I will not take it away from her, but uncle was insisting that my grandmom should say the land is not mine and she should take it away from me. But my grand said, no, I will not take it away from her. It is still hers and it will be hers forever. So the case was judged and the land was given back to me. So I thank Action Aid. Long live Action Aid. Long live Uganda. I thank God for that.
Oh, thank you, my sister. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amoding Betty. 5 minutes, very smart. Very smart. Thank you, and thank you, Action Aid. We are looking at Labong, Christine, Angoet. You are from Nebi. You'll introduce yourself. You need some, you can speak English, I can hear.
I'm called Par Grace. I'm from Nebi. My level of education, I stopped in senior one because of the death of my parents, but I can speak some. As you are seeing me, I'm a single mother with 3 children. So what happened, the reason why I entered in Action Aid, in 2018, my husband rejected me with 2 children and 2-month pregnancy. From there, I started battling the life with my children. There's nowhere to go. I don't have a parents. I don't have anywhere to go. But there's a friend of mine who told me about Action Aid. I even feared because those, whatever, they need money. I told her, I don't have money to go to Action Aid. So she told me that you go, Action Aid will help you at a free cost. I said, if there's no problem, let me go to Action Aid. Then I went to Action Aid. I told my story to them. Then they decided to call for my husband. From there, he rejected the calls. Again, they said I should not get problem because they are there for me. If it comes over, if it need a lawyer, he will bring for me a lawyer. If it need what is there on me, I should not get scared of that man. Again, they called him. He came. And that day, we finished the issue. The issue was so tough, but they said there's no problem. They will be my parents and my brother. I said there's no problem. They again called him. They finished the issues. As I talked now, the man left for me the land and is keeping the children, even if you are not together, but as you are seeing me, as I am, he's giving me money, he's caring for their children. And again, the next time, there is a neighbor of mine again came with his issues. As he was seeing me that I'm alone. The man was in America. I can't do anything to him. He wanted to chase me that, hey, I'm ABCD. I was there scared because I have no money to go to police, have no money to call for the lawyer. But I went again to Action Aid. Action Aid decided to talk with that man from America. The man refused. The man do whatever you want. But that lady still decided to talk with that man. The man again rejected me from that land. And Action Aid decided him to buy for me a new land, and he built for me a house. As I talk now, I has a house, I has a land. That's why I am still stand firm with Action Aid. And what Action Aid is doing in Nebi, please, Uganda, let's stand on Action Aid seriously. because I've seen the strange. I'm here because of ActionAid.
Thank you very much. That's it? Angela? That's it. Thank you. There's a third one and the last one. Labong Christine from Gulu. You need an interpreter? Bin Khan. You thought I don't know?
Anko pangele monwa. Mamana be la yela pa kwan gara. Chi ma be logo ki lewa chwele ne. La dir wano be kubu doga chi onyango matie. Ana fo e won mata ka chaka mwati yene. Ana fo e won ka chaka mwati yene. Ono pangi na ram o ka kama kitene. Pian kondison ma peri no tek ma pelare. Ma ana beru dana mo ma chunya nwang. Akanyo kondison ma tego ma tega da. Kum yele kum mamana ke kum achara ma ka piara bor wi angwen. Ma fura tiri. Ma utingo bien bor chwara. Ni mier watim ire kisa. Wate en kama mier na giti ye pian mier na go daku were. Ada ana fura tira pebe ke kero mo ke kan chwara wachi no Christian. Wanong kere twakta wate mama ni gang bot ngo bot mier na gi. Pian eno bela yera mi eno daku were. After ene wadaga mamana. Eno beri piara bor wi angwen. Kenyu wa beru. O daga piara bor wi abero. Mamana dago era yela kamo beri yene. Mamana dago tingo bieno bot babana kama ana chere pian wano dong panewa. So karamo tingo bieno kama ana chere bot babana yenye babana ki wiera. Chada karamo o kwa wachi itiki pero petika kamo ke kana mira ente chere. Ende geno an ke kan pian ano da tikla cho mano dong tika konye. Cha wache mami an kumbeti dong fungo la chone be dong pe anda ti bon mzege ka ene ka yini ye medu bon mzege chi wa ana do in chen ga. After eno ni ada en ye anwe ke ye in kong de dare. We kong ana ket ko adana pin ki babana ka gu ye mi ka kamo we ana room idi ot. We ini bien beri ye. Ada mama na dak after eno ni aloro ka dana gi ki babana gi gu ye gu mi na ka ot. Akero atiana bongwen ara chule ene. Karma kero atiana chule ene awe mego yende bet kan an pa kwano. Ero en pa kwano ne amira bet dar mati matek. Tij mo ke kan ma ke mena mera ti wek ana cheto kwe. Ana cheto jinja chi en yo kwana. Ada tinga cher bon ngombar chwala mien mamana no ti jinja veta fom. Nye ke luon lu kuya leo. Umeberu mien ken Justin me veta fom. Ada mzee utote me kata ti. Kinone mwagana fut perom ti. Miero kongo konki wek ana beri. After ene anoni peko na diet. Achako yenyu tij bot jo me majan gaden ti. Chako no tij bot jo majan. Achako tij bot jo me majan. Kaka tij wani ti yo macher kirinja. Ada chako tij kenyu chabera rio no kitika chulo wa. After eno nene mamana chwala warga. Loke ching peba. Chwala warga Christian bene lara. Kumbeti babane go riama ki gang. Kamo ke kana mira chata beri dong pe. We mego kuara. Beto mor pe yele kuara. Abi no means mo ke kan palu veta fon bebe. Ada no means. Hatinga chiar gang bot mamana. No mamana okay or mami ene. Ma ana rumu irne. O kobo bot neba. Oto kobo yene wie chue ben perang wa beru. Ada ner malet.
She has not finished. She has. Oh.
Ane ma let awachi mami. Luti ar wati kwene. Wachi Christian. Ate luti ar bot wange. Kumbet latian mo ke ana pe kera dek pe luti ar we no. Inte luti ar bot wange. Ngate mo ke kan mo bigwa luti ar ne pe. Won ki nyere ne be po mare. Muse ke kan be petika beru ka chelo mot. Duak luti ne o chian we ana cheto ki luti ni jinja. Yana beru mo ka piar bor we ber. A gam luti ar eno ne nio. A chair bot ngo bot arasi ara siu mina warga me war yo ti raj ma konye pe road block duong ma konye pe me a ki gang boto me o yallo ken road block diet ma konye pe enta yele ki teka wen me neno ni lutian pa mamana o jinja kaka moma lwen pere ye uno an pa yele kum lutini eno neni no kono lutino beru ngara joma no beti kino joma wen unero gi lukoidi ni pian lutino no giti lukoidi ki kume ma pe ka moma pat enen after eno neni ana la ka dugu na ma dugu ada bien da no mama na a go dok ki kama no en beriene o poro bala chomo kene ada du ke lutina no ne lutine ena be kerga ka kwe kaka mama kerre lutine pe at least mi ara wil kaka mo we ngo we ko beri ki lutine pian dire mandak la chochane rie mama na no kaka berbe berpe ki lutine ada cha ko wil ka ngom bot me go mama ke luonye ne rosa ngom eno beri ma ka piar bon wen wi adek ana dog gang piar bon wen no piar bon wen wi adek rosa ngom mi na ka ngom what a Christian an in latien po mara an pa be wer inata ana bi chatting on me any well mama pe diet me na chile ngali mi chile piara bi wer ini beta ka eni kaka eno la diela ana mi ini beto kaka eni mor pian ko beti in ti dan mama pe nyual ko beti tieni en lutien pa me ni ena yiti ka top ya en mi dir man gu chui kumi neno we ada o yunge kenyo dak ngo gumarajo ma dare aberu ka rem ma beru kene doketi mo persone kuma ber piar bon wen wi abi piar bon wen wi abi mageti mo persone kuma anda neno we andon gar na da duongo krem na bege we kwititi ye kumberu person bege time ko da tim ngo okay ando miara ting warga ngo mana make mama we do gwara in case ka da pere eno meti ki beri ye ki ngo ki u mege na ma anat ber ka gwa ko gini ada wa bero ma bela ma yela mo anda ner ko mer we pe an kit kam mira cham jim yom kumbeti ki gangi mo ma be ma yuyum ma ara ma cham ne pe me we an ko da tim ngo ko da chat ba dorien gi tinda ka che bet kuno we ka non gufu ada tinga biara beru tinda ana meda agi kunu da la ka dag ban mamana a u ban mamana dong deg wa jolla pe dong mer ber kera ma be nena we so ena dong yan deg wa jolla ni a beru ena berni pe mera par gi mo ke gen u imwa ka libario ka bor u cher police station ka dota mu cher ka dota police station wa chi eni cher ka dota ana mi de police mi riem ana mi mai ngomeo nena we so yunge la chen loke enu neni ak gina police wachi gina tie wan bi cher ka wini loke en ki gang loke en ka wan cher ka wini ki gang no neba wutie no wa won ngombe tie ada kita lok gang lok loy mamana kabisa ma won ngom gud lok wi mamana we ada de neni in ikel wi kum latini ka dong latini wachi ende riem ino debiti mo ngo so andong action aid madange wi eni ange mama mana dong tika mieto chato ngoma o temo yele me keto kiri ki piro ber ka do ene pian ki noni ngom mege ko ki cher ki waji ir we chet bot LC1 o mi iri warga ma nyorati ni ngom en migi ka ini dugi office barwa o temo jime no ngayo after eno neni unoni mi do ngo I chato da chara chat na char dong anda te lok bot action aid mi er go konya ka do chara anda betime ni ati la gwara ada action cha ko konya aruya oberi duma bor ma amukate aruya ene duma bor ni kot wanki dek yunge kot wanki dek en petika ye action wacha hayela dong pe yen dong ba te dong lok bot ke kal kwar we ke kal kwar do chi tiek lok wu nen we pien kita ini no ni ngom in dong wan param ri tale kinu no ngena be lok pe after en mama wa en pe bichiar ka moy ken pien ngom en be pe ngom kwar en be mere mod gi mama en be tio mere pe after eno neni ada mama na noni yo pa jimi windo laro ire mama na dong chiar bot RDC mo mene mir RDC u chiar tim ngom mak anote anai poli wek lok ngom en no lingo RDC wa pe I tim right no meri ni ye action ero ri tali kienu kira yende ko ene action et po ri tali kienu ni ine dogan ana be bir ka ri tali kienu in wona latini enena anda foi matek loko mo ma mi loko pol dong pe tu mo dong eno.
Thank you, Christine. Luo are very good storytellers, as well as they have good memories, and they want to tell their story into details. That is why she really wanted to start from where the problem started from, how ActionAid helped her, who really were involved in her case, and then how the case was concluded. So I'm not going to talk much. I'll just give a brief on what the issue was and how she was helped. Before that, I need to introduce myself. My name is Kifola Alice Nora. I'm the Psychosocial Support Officer based at Gulu GBV Shelter. I have been at the GBV Shelter since 2015. I actually know all the corners of the referral pathway and every other thing in GBV response and management. Yeah, she says she's called Labong Christine. Her issue was land, and this land, unfortunately, it was her mother and siblings that she had issues with. She says she did not go to school because of the nature of her parents, who were not literate. They did not know anything about education, so she did not go to school. She did not study. When they gave birth to them, 3 of them, the mother carried her and her siblings and took her to their home and neglected them there. And she went on and married another man, which marriage were not against sustainable. She also went to another 3rd one and a 4th one. So for her, being the first one, she was so overwhelmed with keeping the other siblings. So in her mind, she says that she needed to go to her uncle, who was working in Ginger in Vitafoam, to search for at least something that could help her sustain the other children. So the uncle accepted, but they told her that she was still young. Then they took her to a tea factory. She was packing tea. So she actually saved money from tea packing, and then when she clocked 18, 19, she was again accepted to be given voluntary work at Vitafoam. She was doing, she saved money, and in 1983 she bought land. She bought land because she knew that her siblings and herself needs to have something that could sustain them. So when she bought this land, she took her siblings to this land. Unfortunately, she says that the man she tried to also had a relationship with, she also acquired HIV. So she has been positively living since 1985 up to date. With her siblings, when she took her siblings to the land, her mother also, with her movement, with her disturbance around, she also felt touched and says, my mother, come back home, the land I have bought, so that we'll stay as one happy family. She went and also picked her mother and brought her mother to the same land. But then she became sickly at some point that she needed to be taken care of because she was positively living. That was a time now her mother also thought she was going to die. So she, in her mind, thought of selling off the land. And yet they didn't have any other piece of land anywhere. So when she thought of selling the land, that is when, in her condition, sickly as she is, she opposed that decision to sell the land. So when she opposed that decision to sell the land, wrangles and conflicts now burst in the house. That is the time she walked to ActionAid to be supported. In 4 occasions, the mother was called to come and the case is mediated, but she refused to come. In the 5th time when she was called is when she came. And when she came, they tried to mediate the case. In the mediation, she still resisted that she has to sell off that land. And then Action 8 involved Kekwara Choli. Kekwara Choli is the cultural institution to support. Because this is a family matter that in the intervention, Action 8 was also thinking of, you know, reuniting them in the conflicts. Whether the conflict was there, at the end of the day, they need to be as one family. So Kekwara actually was as well involved until when this case was mediated, but the mother again resisted from Kekwara. Now, she had all the documents in her names because she bought the land herself. This is the time now the lawyer supported her in drafting the necessary documents in court, and then now she owned the ownership of the land. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Kekwara actually is what? Cultural institution. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much for sharing. I know we could have shared more, and maybe it points to the need maybe to have maybe a longer, maybe a 2-day meeting next time to the organizers. But I think this has given you an idea on the kind of impact that the work of shelters is having in our different communities. As we all listened, there are some issues which are kind of cutting across. First of all of them were women. But as we said before, and we heard from some of the speakers, even as far as Mbarara, they were talking about the men and the boys also utilizing these shelters. So hopefully next time we shall hear from the men and the boys so that we can also get their story. The second is the issue of relatives and the multiple roles of the women. Most times it's their children, it's their relatives. And then the third one was the issue of land as a resource. So you can imagine and you can see how important it is to have this pillar on the economic pillar being given a lot of attention, just as much as the medical and the legal and the psychosocial. I think finally, we also heard about Action Aid and the work it's doing, as well as the cultural institutions, like the Kekwara actually, they said, doing some work in those communities. I thought these are so important points for us to highlight going forward. In conclusion, I'd like to stop here. As I promised, by past we'll be out of here. And I'm reliably informed that we have one of the conveners here in the house who is going to close, the country director who is going to close this particular symposium. And without much further ado, I'd like to first of all welcome you, sir, the country director of Action Aid International. We've missed you, but I know you are here in spirit and you'll be briefed. And I'm glad you caught the tail end, which clearly shows the impact of your work. And we wish you well, and we congratulate you on the great work done. So I'd like to invite Mr. Xavier Ejoy, they say there's an I at the end, the country director of Action Aid International Uganda, to give closing remarks. They had said summary of key outcomes, but I think that may be a tall order. But you feel you have it, fine. You have Action Aid here, even in your absence. So please, you are welcome, and thank you for being with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mistress of Ceremonies. My name is Xavier Ejoyi. First of all, allow me to honestly apologize for not being here at the opening. I have heard that I was well represented here, but I also had my, thank you. I also had my eyes and ears here. The reason I was not able to be here is I had an engagement with our board. So I hope that you'll have room in your beautiful hearts to forgive me for not being here in the morning. All protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share a few of the actions that were discussed here and agreed to, and then I'll just make one point, and that's it. Will be closed for the day. I don't want to stand between you and the traffic in this city. First, this symposium on sustainability and impact of gender-based violence shelters is critical for all the stakeholders who have interest and make a contribution to having a country that is free of violence against women and girls, and especially gender-based violence, which still remains a big issue in this country. And so as we talk sustainability, as we talk impact, I think it is a moment for us to reflect on what more can we do as stakeholders in this nation who have a desire to see this country free of gender-based violence and all forms of violence and oppression against women. Their discussions in this room were robust. A number of actions were agreed to. I will read through, and then I will make, as I said, one point and recommend that we close this for now. One, on our actions, whereas government of Uganda has committed to support shelters, the available 20 shelters do not serve the needs of survivors across this country. And therefore, there is need to broaden partnerships to ensuring that we are able to support the survivors of gender-based violence across this nation. Two, our convening here today is really to open ourselves to the challenges, the impact, and the sustainability beyond donor funding. How is that possible? Is to ensure that government is able to allocate more resources towards the management of shelters. Also, the institutionalization of gender-based violence shelters needs to be fast-tracked in order to ensure that sustainability and impact is scaled up. And the development partners need to commit to support of shelters in their gender-based violence programming, including alternative options of financing shelters. Also, there should be a deliberate diversification of funders from government to multilateral organizations to bilateral partners, private foundations, international organizations, high net worth individuals in the country, on the continent, in the diaspora. In short, there is enough room for all funders and stakeholders to support gender-based violence shelters. Different philanthropies and some community models need to be explored, and I think there is some initiatives across the country to that effect. It is important that we leave no hand behind in this. Getting a better context, mapping and forecasting through investing in technical expertise in terms of funding is needed. Hybrid models of funding, government, such as NGOs, donors, and the community need to be explored. A one-stop center model should be in place in this country international advocacy to transform funding if we want to sustain solutions. That is to say, out-of-the-box initiatives, maybe without-the-box initiatives, like endowment funds, transforming funding modalities, and so on. The Uganda Women's Parliamentary Association committed to ensure that a proper budget is allocated to ensure to issues of women and children, and the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development committed to step up efforts to engage with the members of Parliament. I believe that is on resource allocation towards programming of gender-based violence shelters. Private sector actors and partners should strengthen ongoing engagements, but also provide in-kind support. Some of the support that is needed in the shelters is in-kind. Soap, maybe cooking gas, or whatever it takes is necessary to ensure that we sustain gender-based violence shelters. The Interreligious Council of Uganda committed that a 1% revenue collection should be allocated to gender-based violence shelters. I don't know whether this is out of IRCU constituent members or where that is, but that's a commitment that IRSU made. Beyond traditional resource mobilization, Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development should initiate a public campaign where the public can contribute towards gender-based violence response, and especially the shelters. Using creative arts like organizing a concert with proceeds going into gender-based violence shelters. And finally, scaling up to work with Uganda Prison Services in regard to rehabilitation of perpetrators. Time to walk the talk. Words are important, but only actions count. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the summary of the discussion here and key actions that were agreed to that may need to be refined concretely and distributed to all the participants in this symposium. But allow me just to say one thing to echo a lot of the discussion that has gone on here. In the middle of COVID-19 lockdown, and when the gender-based violence escalated across the country, Action Aid and its partners were overwhelmed. And news of all sources reflected the seriousity of this problem. And among other interventions, we appreciate UN Women and the sister UN agencies and donors that made available resources to Action Aid to respond to those heightened cases. We really appreciate, at a time when things were hard in this country and elsewhere in the world, that meant a lot to some of the survivors that you've seen here. But just allow me a minute to share with you an initiative that I thought reflected the spirit behind even the conversations today. A group of old students of Gayaza High School, 3 of them in number, asked one of their colleagues to call me, whom I happen to know. She called me, she said they have seen a lot that is going on in the media relating to escalating gender-based violence in the country. They have also heard that Action Aid is doing things about gender-based violence response. And their question was simple: how can they be part of what Action Aid is doing? And then I invited her for an online meeting. 3 of them joined. And I asked them, what are they able to do? They said they can set aside some money, contribute. They can try to encourage some of their old girls to do the same. And they put together money. It was not a lot of money, but I can tell you they collected up to 3 million shillings. These were 6 girls in total. And Gayaza girls, maybe some of the old students are in this room.
Yes, I'm here.
You're here. Oh, okay. I'll talk to you after this symposium. They collected 3 million shillings, and they said, look, this is what we're able to collect, but we will continue engaging with the broader fraternity of Gayaza High School, all girls. So we took the 3 million shillings and really thought that for these kind of contributors, the money should not just get lost in the gender-based violence shelters, and it's not clear what it went to do, and so on. And so I talked to the staff. I said, can we identify a specific area to channel these funds to be able to support survivors, recover from the trauma of violence, and set themselves on the feet? And so the staff in the Boise gender-based violence shelter was able to identify a number of survivors. I don't have the number in my head, but it was somewhere between 9 and 15 survivors. And the targeted intervention was economic empowerment. And the kind of things that these women were supported to do, it is not a ground-shaking initiative. For example, one of them just wanted 100,000 shillings to start to have capital to buy and sell cassava. The other one thought that because builders were allowed to work during COVID-19 lockdown, she could buy food and cook and sell to construction sites. And the other one thought she needed to buy and start selling charcoal. So after 3 months of intervention, our staff at the Boise shelter wrote down a report. I can tell you, going through that report, it would send any one of you here in tears. Because, yes, we can talk sustainability, we can talk big money, we can talk how can we do A, B, C, D, and so on, but the survivors just need a hand to hold to allow them to walk out of the trauma of experiencing violence and the risk of reoccurrence. Whether that will involve a legal intervention, a psychosocial intervention, a medical intervention, that's all they need. And then they are back to their feet. And so once again, as we talk sustainability, we can talk the numbers of lives reached, we can write nice project reports and make funding accountabilities and so on, but the sustainability that lasts longer is with the survivor. The transformation of the survivor from a place of hurt to a place of healing is the sustainability that we together owe survivors of gender-based violence in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, I thank you for spending time to reflect, to learn, to share in this symposium. And with those remarks, I want to move to close this symposium. Thank you very much for God and my country.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The country director, thank you for those words. We have come to the end. Action Aid will handle administrative matters. Where's Angela? You'll handle administrative matters. And as we close, I had some people asking, what is a shelter? What is a one-stop center? A shelter usually handles people for about 14 to 1 month. Sometimes that's not long enough, but it's really to provide security, provide basic needs for that time. One-stop center is a bit longer. You can get medical, you can get legal, you can get psychosocial support, as well as economic support. So just for clarity, I thought you'd go with this. And I wish you well. We started off with a prayer. Can we stand up for another prayer? And I'm going to ask one of us, Rose from Queen. We are praying. We are praying for Johnny Mercies. That DCDO, yes. Can you say a prayer for us as we close?
Okay, let's humble ourselves. Lord Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you that you brought us to the end of this meeting. We thank you for the many deliberations that we have come up with. Lord, we ask you, Lord, for direction, even as we live here, to be able to implement and impact on the lives of the women and girls in the country. We ask, Lord, for journey mercies, that we arrive home safely. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you for your attention, enthusiasm. Travel safe, and best wishes.